by James Dorsey in Singapore. He's a senior fellow at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. James, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with Israel and Gaza. Netanyahu says the conditions have changed a lot for the good. What does he mean by that in terms of looking for a ceasefire?
Well, his assumption is that Hamas now feels more isolated because Hezbollah, in terms that Netanyahu would use, has abandoned Hamas, and therefore Hamas is fighting the Israelis now alone. I think one has to keep in mind that while Hezbollah was fighting the Israelis in support of the Palestinians, that really had no effect on the ground on the fighting in Gaza. So, with other words, if Hezbollah now agrees, or with Hezbollah now agreeing to a ceasefire, nothing on the ground changes in Hamas. In that sense, there's no real additional pressure beyond perhaps a psychological element. And there's no indication that that is something that is affecting Hamas in its position towards a ceasefire.
And what about the Israeli army itself taking quite a hit? More than a year of fighting. You've got soldiers and reservists who are exhausted and may want this to end?
Clearly, well, first of all, I think you've got to keep in mind that, again, the army is not a unified element in this in terms of thinking among the rank and file and the officers' corps within the Israeli military. You have the professional military that's been there a long time, secular in its outlook, and you increasingly have part of the military, which is also professional, but they are people who come out of religious nationalist religious seminaries, and they're much more hardline in their attitudes, much more ultra-nationalist, and today account for roughly 40% of the officers' corps beyond the below the level of a brigadier. So the military is divided, and that we see that in all the videos that come out from Gaza, for example. The military is divided on whether or not it wants to continue this fight. The military command has made very clear that they believe that it's negotiations, not military operations, that will free the hostages in Gaza. And at the same time, this is the longest war the Israeli military has fought. But on the other hand, certainly in Lebanon, it's had military success.
And what about the fact that public support for the Likud party, according to a recent poll, has dropped slightly after this deal with Hezbollah? Do you think that that at all could impact Netanyahu's decision-making?
Well, there's a significant part of the Israeli public that believes that this ceasefire will not be sustainable. They believe that the Lebanese army is not up to the task, and that may actually be true unless it gets significant support. The commander of the Lebanese army has already said he needs to have an additional 6,000 to 7,000 troops that he needs to recruit and train to be able to execute the ceasefire agreement properly. And at the same time, there are many Israelis, including in the military, who believe that Hezbollah will want to regroup, given the setbacks that it suffered in Lebanon, also to maintain its political position in the country, and therefore, by definition, will violate the ceasefire. That thinking clearly is going to influence Netanyahu. Now, I think one thing one has to keep in mind, in the reasons why Netanyahu said that he accepted the ceasefire, is something that is to which little attention has been paid, and that was that it freed up Israel to deal with Iran's nuclear program. And that's something that's going to be much more in line with what the incoming Trump administration will want, given that it is populated by Iran hawks.
Yes, right. And so it's your view then that the president-elect coming into office in January has potentially influenced that decision there, because you're right, that's not something that has been picked up too much in the analysis that I've seen.
I think that Netanyahu is very sensitive and alert to what Trump's thinking is. These are two men who've had their differences, but nonetheless have come from similar ilk and represent similar worldviews. It's clear to Netanyahu that that Trump wants Gaza to end. Whether or not Netanyahu is going to concede on that remains to be seen, because from Netanyahu's point of view, Gaza is a much more existential fight than Lebanon is. But at the same time, for many years, Netanyahu has made Israel's main security concern. And this is his opportunity to act on it once Trump is in office.
That's all we have time for. James Dorsey, thank you so much for your time, Senior Fellow at Singapore's Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Thank you.